A library of parent functions. In this first video, we're going to take a look at commonly used parent functions. This will pair nicely with what we learned in section 1.7 about transforming functions. So you'll find that these videos will probably go fairly quickly. This is just making sure you understand which graphs go to which functions so that we can begin to transform them in the next video. We'll begin with linear functions, and we should be fairly familiar with linear functions at this point. Their graphs are straight lines. Most often we use slope-intercept form or y equals mx plus b. So for each of the functions, I've included a what to remember section, just tidbits about each type of graph so that you understand what makes that graph unique. So the domain is all reals, the range is all reals, assuming the slope is not 0. Recall when the slope is 0, that's called a constant function, so I might have a graph that looks like this, say if f of x were equal to 2. That would be a constant function, so that would be a range of only 2, whereas the rest of the time the range will be all reals. Our slope will be m, our y-intercept will be the point 0, b, and the identity graph is just the slope of 1, so y equals x. And that's really all you need to know. So we have talked about most of the aspects of linear functions, and we've talked about how to graph, but let's go ahead and make sure we understand how to write the equation of a graph given 2 points. So if you'll recall, I'm going to use two different functions. I'm going to use the slope function, which is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, and I'm going to use point slope form. Y minus y1 is equal to m x minus x1. So here's my 2 points. I can label them x1, y1, x2, y2, or if you're past that point, you don't need to do any labeling. I will begin by finding the slope. So the slope would be my second y minus my first y divided by my second x minus my first x. And that gives me 5 divided by negative 15, or negative 1/3. Then I'm going to use my point slope form, and I'm going to choose either one of my points. So I'm going to choose that second point. So I'm going to choose y minus y1, y2. So I'm going to choose 3 is equal to my slope, negative 1/3, and then x minus x2, so I'm going to choose then minus negative 9, which of course is plus 9. That gives me y minus 3 is equal to negative 1/3 x minus 3. I add 3 to each side, and I get y is equal to negative 1/3 x, and I can graph that and see that the graph of the line does in fact cross through negative 9, 3, and 6, negative 2. If you felt I went through that fairly quickly, that's because we've already talked about this in earlier sections, so go back to your text to determine where we talked about slope-intercept form and point slope form and writing the equations of lines. The next function is an absolute value function, obviously not quite used as often as a linear function, but I included it with the linear functions because it is in fact a line that has a slope of negative 1 up to the point of 0, 0, and a slope of positive 1 past 0. The domain is all real numbers. The range is non-negative reals, which means my y value is never going to dip below 0. It is going to go through the point 0, 0, and again, this is for the parent function y equals negative x. It is not for if I start adding numbers or multiplying by numbers, then that's going to change things. That's what we're going to focus on in section 1.7. So again, it's decreasing from negative infinity to 0. In fact, this side of the line is y is equal to negative x, and this side of the line is y is equal to x. And it's increasing from 0 to infinity. Next is a quadratic function. A quadratic function is a polynomial function with a degree of 2. And again, we're looking just at that parent function. So y equals x squared. Different things are going to happen to this if I start adding or subtracting values. This is the parent function y equals x squared. It's a u-shaped or parabola with equation in the form y equals x squared. The domain is all reals. The range is non-negative reals, so that includes 0, 0. The y-intercept and relative minimum is 0, 0. We're going to talk more about minimums later. The function is even, so it's symmetric to the y-axis. I could fold it in half along the y-axis. And it decreases from negative infinity to 0 and increases from 0 to infinity. Cubic functions are also polynomial functions, but they have a degree of 3. And the domain is all reals and the range is all reals. And the function is odd or symmetric about the origin. Remember, that means I could take whatever's in the third quadrant, rotate it around to the first quadrant, and get exactly the same graph. It is increasing everywhere and does go through the point 0, 0. The square root function is a function in the form y equals radical x, or the square root of x. Now keep in mind this is specific to the square root, so we're not talking about the cubed root or fourth root. We're looking at the square root. Remember that the domain, or the values that I can put in for x, would be any non-negative real numbers, because I cannot take the square root of a negative number. I would get an imaginary number. The range, which is the y values, they will come out of the function also positive, because I'm taking the square root of a positive value. It's increasing starting at 0 onto infinity, and the intercept is at 0, 0. Then we have the reciprocal function that has an equation in the form y equals 1 over x. And this one I really wanted to point out the asymptotes. So we know that we cannot have a denominator equal to 0, and that's why you see what's happening down here. When I'm looking at the domain is all reals, except x cannot be 0. So the mathy way to do that is to say it goes from negative infinity to 0. It doesn't include 0. And then union 0 to infinity. So would I also count it correct if you said x cannot be equal to 0? Yes, I would, because you're saying all reals except for x is equal to 0. That's the same for the range. Again, we've got asymptotes both at x equals 0 and y equals 0, so those graphs will never touch the lines of the asymptotes. The function is odd or symmetric about the origin. Again, decreasing everywhere except at 0, where the function is undefined, and it does not intercept the x-axis at all. Step and piecewise defined functions. We have already reviewed all of the basic parent functions, which will come in handy when we start to talk about the transformation of functions in our next section. But I do want to make sure we understand step functions and piecewise functions. We have already talked a little about piecewise functions, but not about the step function. So a step function is a function whose graph resembles a staircase. And two of the common step functions include the ceiling function and the floor function. So the ceiling function simply tells us to round up to the next greatest integer, and the floor function asks us to round down to the least integer. So essentially what we're going to do is look at the two values that point falls between and then round down. Now, I do want to point out that your textbook uses f of x is equal to the greatest integer function of x. It is the exact same as the floor function. So let's take a look to make sure we understand. We're going to evaluate f of -2, f of 0.2, and f of 3.3 for f of x is equal to the greatest integer function of x plus 1. So what we're going to do for f of -2.2 is we're going to replace x with -2.2, and then we're going to have to apply the floor function or greatest integer function. And this says if I were to look at the point on a number line, negative 2.2 would fall in here. The greatest integer function or floor function says to round down. So this would be replaced with negative 3 plus 1, which would give me a value of negative 2. Now let's do the same for f of 0.2. So again, 0.2 on the number line would be between 0 and 1. The floor function or greatest integer function says round down to 0, so we're going to take 0 plus 1, or 1. And then the last one is 3.3, so again that would be between 3 and 4. 3.3 here would round down to 3. So we would take 3 plus 1, which is 4. I want to show you what the graph of that function would look like, and let's take a look at the points that we just came up with. Negative 2.2, comma, negative 2, 0.2, comma, 1, and 3.3, comma, 4. I also want you to notice on one end of each step is a closed circle and on the other end is an open circle. That will always be the case with step functions because, for instance, for the floor function, if I plugged in negative 1, the floor function wouldn't round it to anything else. It would still be negative 1, and then I would add the 1 to get back up here. So notice that is the closed circle, whereas the open circle is below it. The last function we're going to do is a piecewise defined function, and piecewise just means that you have different functions that cover different parts of our domain. So our domain should never overlap, and we should have functions that without an overlapping domain, they might meet up at some point or they might not. So let's take a look. If I'm looking at any values less than or equal to negative 2, I'm going to use the function 2x plus 2. So above this, I'm just going to indicate that negative 2 will be included, and this is anything to the left of that. For negative 2, not including negative 2, up to positive 2 and including positive 2, so again, that's open circle all the way over to 2 closed circle, I'm going to use the function negative 1. Well, that's going to be an easy one. And then for x is greater than 2, so not including 2, but anything to the right of that is going to be the function negative 2x plus 2. So let's get started. We're going to do this by hand and then do a check. So I would start with f of, say, negative 3 and f of negative 2, just to get an idea what that graph looks like in the yellow portion of our graph. So f of negative 3 would be 2 times negative 3 plus 2, which is negative 6 plus 2, or negative 4. F of negative 2 is 2 times negative 2 plus 2, which is negative 4 plus 2, or negative 2. So I'm going to graph negative 3, negative 4, and negative 2, negative 2. So up to this point, this is the graph less than or equal to 2. The graph from negative 2 to positive 2 is just the value of negative 1. So from negative 2 open circle to positive 2 closed circle, it's just going to be negative 1. And then for the last part of my graph, say f of 2. Now notice I'm using 2 even though 2 is not included, it's just greater than 2. I still need to know where that first circle is. So f of 2 is going to be negative 2 times 2 plus 2, or negative 4 plus 2, which is negative 2. So 2 comma negative 2 open circle, and then say f of 3 would be negative 2 times 3 plus 2, or negative 6 plus 2, which is negative 4. And we could continue that on as long as we needed to, and we can see what our graph looks like. So let's double check. If I get rid of all of my little markings, I can see that I did a fabulous job. Up next, we're really going to use what we just learned about parent functions to learn what happens to those functions depending on if we're adding or subtracting values inside the function or outside. So 1.7, transformations of functions.